Good morning and happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. I'm here today to help you break down tonight's 12-game MLB DFS slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you. Also, if you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. As a member, you get access to the models I'll be using throughout the video. You also get a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder. We also have a private Discord server full of seasoned DFS pros to help you improve your game. And then for MLB, we also have the daily plug article to help you kind of isolate our favorite batters, pitchers, and stacks using the models. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is the first time I'm doing one of these morning breakdown videos. Going to take a little time to find my cadence. I'm going to try to go through game by game, try to keep it quick and under 20 minutes, but we'll see how we do. And feel free to leave feedback and comments below and let us know what you think so we can improve this experience for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start going game by game here. I have the stack model up, I have the pitcher model up, and then I have the batter model up as well for um, for MLB for all three kind of factors that we're going to be leaning on when building lineups. I have a DK and FanDuel window open. Probably not going to build as we talk through, but I will use maybe some of the game logs there just to make the viewing experience a bit more pleasurable. Then we have the live odds window open as well, which is available on occupy.com. So let's get into this here. First game on the slate, we have the Cubs at the Nationals. So we go ahead, we check the stacks list, sort by OF ranking. Are we seeing either of these teams here? Really, no. The Cubs are way down there, Nationals are way down there. But at the same time, if we're sorting by pitching, OF index, we're not seeing either of these guys either. Williams way, way down, Wisniewski way, way down. So there's really nothing from this game we need to prioritize. I will say if I were to focus on anything, it would probably be lefties against Trevor Williams. He's allowing a 200 ISO to left-handed hitters to start the season. I don't think the Cubs are the craziest stack here. Probably not something I'd be rushing to get to. But guys like Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, I think Patrick Wisdom has a ridiculous 386 ISO against righties this season as well. So while you're not getting the righty-lefty split with him, he's certainly someone I'd be considering. So we'll pull up the Cubs quickly here. And yeah, Wisdom, Happ, Bellinger, just like I said, so no surprise there. Horner, if he's leading off, all kind of reasonably priced. Not seeing much ownership going to them on either site. So off that alone, there is some merit to playing them in large field tournaments. And then as far as the Nationals go against Wisniewski, I mean, it's not the worst matchup, but at the same time, I don't know. I just don't think they have a ton of upside as a team. I mean, guys like Ruiz, Call, Candelario, Garcia, they're all decent bats, but really nothing you're prioritizing. If anything, maybe as a secondary stack on FanDuel, if you want to fit one of the more expensive pitchers with maybe one of the core stacks, or another expensive stack, that's maybe where you would go get to some Nationals. But for me, really nothing I'm prioritizing at all from this game. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Guardians at the Yankees. And here we're going to see a bit more, at least on the pitching side. Yankees and Guardians both way down in terms of OF index rating. Really no surprise there. But when we go to the pitchers, sorting by OF index, we see Garrett Cole towards the top. And then the Yankees are taking on Tanner Bigby, who is a very talented young arm. Seeing reasonable price tags on him. No ownership yet on him, which is surprising to me. I do think that comes up throughout the day. Let me pull up Big B's game log here. Let's see. Bibby. I'm putting a G in there. But yeah, there is no G. So against the Rockies in his debut, he had 8 Ks over 5 2/3 inning pitch, allowed 6 hits, but he did get the win, allowing just one earned run. This is a very talented young player. And the thing about the Yankees right now is their lineup is terrible. There is no Giancarlo Stanton, no Aaron Judge. Josh Donaldson's still not back. And yeah, they're completely banged up. So we're seeing guys like Willie Calhoun, Kiner Falefa, Franchi Cordero, and then whoever ends up playing catcher, it's just not the dangerous matchup that it would be earlier in the season. So Cole, one of the better arms on the entire slate. We see that reflected in the ownership. He's our third ranked. Not third ranked, I think fourth ranked OF index play tonight. But I do like him a lot on both sites if you can afford him. 11.5 is certainly expensive, but he's been outstanding. Arguably the best pitcher in baseball to start the season, especially given Strider's struggles yesterday. But then, yeah, don't be afraid to play Bibby over on the other side. Again, this Yankees lineup is not what you would expect it to be, and he's only 6,500 over on DK. I think he's a really solid value piece there. Then on FanDuel, even 8,400, I think there's enough K upside in this Yankees lineup to consider him. Just pulling up some stats on my other monitor, taking a look real quick. Yeah, Cole has a near 30% K rate to start the season, 3.6 xFIP. He's been outstanding. The thing is, the Guardians don't K much more than 20% against right-handed pitching, but he is sort of an outlier, so I can certainly see getting to him there. But the Yankees' projected starting lineup does have a 24% K rate against right-handed pitching. So again, Bibby's a really solid value option, one of my favorite value pitchers tonight, and Garrett Cole's certainly excellent anywhere you can afford him. And then yeah, I'm really not that interested in bats from either side. If anything, maybe Anthony Rizzo is on off. He's been really good, but other than that, the Yankees bats are ice cold right now, and obviously we're not really rushing to play Guardians bats against one Garrett Cole. So let's move into the next game on the slate now. We got the Blue Jays at the Red Sox. Yusei Kikuchi will be facing off against Tanner Houck. So first, let's take a look at the pitcher model, see if either of these guys are popping. Yeah, I mean, Tanner's kind of towards the bottom there. Kikuchi obviously has some K upside. Not getting much love on either site, though. Obviously, Boston's lineup is pretty good against left-handed pitching. And then in terms of stacks, we're not seeing either of these teams really towards the top at all. So this is kind of one of those games where everything's pretty neutral. The pitchers are decent, not excellent, and the lineups are good, but not great. For me personally, though, I'm surprised Toronto isn't showing up higher. We have them ranked 29th right now against Tanner Houck. And so if we sort by ISO, they're still way down there. And that is just very, very surprising to me. I mean, personally, um, yeah, you want to trust the model 9 times out of 10, and I think that's usually the way to go. But yeah, Tanner Houck, he's allowing power to left-handed hitters, so someone like Varsho, Belt, those guys are going to be interesting here. And then yeah, their team total is pushing 5 runs, I believe, so there is going to be some merit to getting to Blue Jays bats. Yeah, we have them over 5, ranking fifth in team total, so again, it's just really surprising to me to see how low those ISO and WOBA numbers are. So, not a great spot for Toronto if they're going to be popular. Sort by ownership real quick. Yeah, the most popular stack over on DK, and our model just doesn't love them as much as I thought they would. Over on FanDuel, they're the second most popular after the Padres. So yeah, on paper the Blue Jays look okay here, but the model really isn't getting on them for whatever reason. So if they're going to be over-owned, maybe that's an easy fade. Wouldn't shock me to see them put up numbers here. And then on the other side of things, Kikuchi's actually had reverse splits to start the season, so don't be afraid to play someone like Devers if you choose to stack against him. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty surprised that we're not seeing these stacks ranking higher. Boston, kind of middle of the road in every statistical category. Kikuchi has been prone to giving up a lot of runs on occasion, though. So yeah, I'm a bit taken back, honestly, by what the model's showing me here. I thought Toronto would be popping a lot more aggressively, and they're not. But the ownership is certainly there, so maybe that's a spot where you can get different. I just hope Tanner Houck and Kikuchi can kind of hold it down in that game. Um, but yeah, wind blowing out in Fenway tonight. Certainly decent hitting weather. It is a little bit colder than it usually is in May, so maybe that's the reason things aren't really looking great here. Um, but yeah, throughout the day, keep an eye on that. I imagine the OF index rating for Toronto does come up. Seeing them all the way down at 29th is a bit surprising to me. It could be a pricing too. I do imagine they're very expensive, but again, super, super chalky. So don't be afraid to get away from them. When all else fails, just trust the model. So yeah, not much to talk about there. If we are going to avoid those spots, so we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Minnesota Twins at the Chicago White Sox. That is one Joe Ryan facing off against Michael Kopech. So really two different situations here. Ryan, one of the best arms on the slate. He's been excellent to start the season. Just taking a look at what he's been doing lately. I can pull up his game log. While I'm at it, though, let me take a quick look at Boston. I'm pretty shocked that Hulk is. Yeah, I mean, he's been decent. He did allow 3 earned runs his last 2 times out, so I don't think that's enough for the Jays to break a slate if they're going to be chalk. So I guess that's probably why the model's off them. But yeah, moving back into this Minnesota Chicago game, Joe Ryan's been mostly excellent. He's got the nice mustache there in his picture, certainly helping him pitch well. He's had a quality start in four of his last five outings, putting up solid numbers. And tonight he's against a White Sox lineup that's arguably the coldest in baseball. So I really do like Joe Ryan here if you can afford him. I do think Cole's probably a little bit safer, but you're going to get more upside with this White Sox lineup. So plenty of reason to like Joe Ryan. Then Michael Kopech. This was a kid who was super talented as a prospect, very hyped when he came into the league, but now it looks like all that hype is gone, and he's starting to become an arm we like to stack against. So while Ryan looks excellent here, Kopech not so much. 5.6 xFIP to start the season, allowing worse than 270 ISO to both right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters. So I do really like the Twins bats here. Hopefully the model agrees. Yeah, we got them pretty high up. Ranking eighth in OF Index, fourth in ISO, 13th in WOBA, second in team total. Yeah, the Twins are an excellent stack here. So let's go ahead over to the batters page, sort by Minnesota, see which bats are popping up. Buxton, no surprise, he's totally locked in. Joey Gallo, pretty boomer bust, but reasonably priced for a guy who's very likely to homer here. Max Kepler, Polanco, Correa, really any of the starters are going to look good here. Not drawing as much ownership as I expected they would. Only Polanco getting 10% on FanDuel, nothing else drawing 10% ownership on either site. So I consider the Twins to be one of the best stacks on the slate. So I like them a lot here. Wouldn't be playing White Sox backs. I do like Joe Ryan if you can afford him. Reasonably owned on both sites, especially 1% over on FanDuel. That's a really solid tournament option off of chalkier guys like Urias, Garrett Cole, etc. So we like Joe Ryan. We like those Twins bats on both sites. But yeah, another solid game, and we have plenty to choose from those. So let's move into the next one now. We get the Baltimore Orioles at the Kansas City Royals. Tyler Wells at Ryan Yarbrough. So we'll start on the pitchers page here. Wells, he's actually been decent, striking out a lot of guys. Still pretty cheap on both sides, so he's getting some love in tournaments. Ryan Yarbrough, not so much. Actually, our worst OF index play in terms of rating on the slate. Excuse me. So you don't want to play Yarbrough at all here. You can maybe mix in some Wells. He's pretty risky, but obviously has upside at very low ownership. But let's take a look over at the stacks. And yeah, Baltimore ranking very well. We got them sixth in OF index, seventh in ISO, ninth in WOBA, fourth in team total. So definitely a stack worth checking out. Going to the Orioles, see what bats are popping for them. Mountcastle's been pretty cold, but obviously he has massive power. I don't mind him here at all. Again, another team not drawing much ownership. Hayes, Santander, Rushman. Let me just pull up these numbers. Yarbrough is a lefty. That's why you're seeing the righty bats popping towards the top. No surprise there. He has had reverse splits to start the season, though, so don't be afraid to play lefty bats. I think the only true lefties that will crack the order are guys like Mullins and Frazier. They both look fine here. Mullins actually has decent numbers against lefties. Frazier, okay. But yeah, I think the priorities are going to be Mountcastle, who does have a 300 plus ISO against lefties. Austin Hayes likely to lead off. Rutschman, excellent. Mateo, very expensive over on FanDuel, but an excellent play on both sides. So the Orioles join the Twins is one of my favorite stacks on the slate. I'm just going to open a notepad file to keep track of some of this stuff. So top stacks so far. Really like Baltimore. Really like Minnesota. There's a bunch of good arms. And then, yeah, I'm probably not playing much of KC. Tyler Wells isn't great, but he's good enough for me to not want to go out and stack the Royals. So we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Angels at the Cardinals. Patrick Sandoval's facing Steven Matz, so we got a lefty-lefty matchup here, as in both these guys are lefties. But the thing is, both these teams hit lefties pretty well. So we got Matz down here, really not a pitcher I'm going to be considering. Patrick Sandoval has flashed decent K upside, but the Cardinals are one of the best teams in the league at hitting left-handed pitching, so I'm really not all that interested in them. We see St. Louis ranking towards the top, tied for sixth in OF index rating. I like them here. Then the Angels ranking second. So two of our top stacks are actually coming from this game. I'm just pulling up stats on my other screen. So yeah, Mats hasn't been bad. He is allowing a 200 ISO to righties as well as a 400 WOBA. And then yeah, let's take a look at Sandoval while we're here. Not allowing a ton of power, but he does have an XFIP pushing 5, pretty high WOBA to righties as well. So I prefer the Angels here actually, but at the same time, I think the Cardinals have tremendous upside and they're not going to be very popular. Um, so let's see. We'll start with the Angels, see which bats are popping for them. Yeah, Neto leading off, really high OF index rating, mostly because of price. One of the better value plays on the entire slate. Mike Trout is Mike Trout. You can play him anywhere you can afford him. Feel pretty good about it. Drury's been locked in, hit a couple home runs over the past week or so. He looks good here. Renfro always crushes left-handed pitching. Actually, a 240 ISO against lefties to start the season, so he's picking up right where he left off. And then Otani, lefty lefty, but don't be afraid to play him here. He has a 250 ISO against lefties to start the season. Rendon's fine, Chad Wallach okay, Urshela Ward, etc. They're all okay plays here. But yeah, sort by OF index. That's kind of how you're going to want to prioritize things. Obviously, Trout, Renfro, Otani have more upside than Neto, but when we're talking point per dollar and you're getting him sub 3K on both sides, that's the type of play you're going to want to look at. So Neto, especially if he's leading off, really love the Angels stack here tonight against Mats, who is a decent arm. But whenever we can get the Angels low owned against the lefty, they are something we have to consider. Then over on the St. Louis side, really no surprises here. Goldschmidt and Arenado both crush left-handed pitching, as does Wilson Contreras. Contreras actually the best numbers so far this season, pushing a 400 ISO against lefties. So he's a priority for me. We have him ranked third. Um, but yeah, those top three bats are all going to be excellent. Tommy Edman likely to lead off. He actually has a 550 ISO, but that's a very small sample size against lefties this season. If you pull it back and take a look at his stats dating back to the start of 2022, you're getting a 225 out of him, a 350 plus out of Goldschmidt, 340 out of Arenado. So Edmund, Goldie, Arenado, Contreras, 1 through 4, outstanding stack. Really solid, but you're going to have to mix in some of the value guys like Motter, maybe DeJong at the bottom of the order to make things fit, but do not ignore the Cardinals. So I'm going to go ahead and add St. Louis and the Angels to my list in my little notepad file there, but I really do like both these teams as stacks, and I would not go near either of the pitchers in this one. All right. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have Zach Gallen at John Gray. It looks like the roof will probably be closed in Texas. I guess that's something to keep an eye on. But look, here we got Zach Gallen ranking as the second best pitcher on the slate in terms of OF index rating. John Gray, not so much. He's kind of fallen off. He started off the season really strong, but he's been reeling. So not sure we're going to get to him. But let me pull up some statistics here. Yeah, so Gallon, dating back to the start of 2022, 357 xFIP, holding both righties and lefties to a sub 280 WOBA, which is great to see. 223 xFIP to start the season, 35% K rate. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, so really, really like Zach Gallen here. We're going to see that reflected in ownership over on DK, where he's 30% owned, but on FanDuel, it's just 6%. Really solid contrarian option, so I like Gallen on both sides, one of my favorite arms on the slate. The Rangers are decent, but they do K around 23% of the time against right-handed pitching. That's their projected lineup. Um, but yeah, John Gray on the other side, his xFIP is now pushing 6. Really not all that interested in him. I could actually see playing lefty bats against him. So let's see if we get Arizona ranking up in the stacks. Yeah, they're top 10 in OF index. I don't mind getting to some Arizona. I guess they're worth touching on real quick here. So yeah, the lefties popping towards the top. We got Smith, Rojas, Marte hitting from the left side. Christian Walker is a righty. I don't mind him here. He's probably the best power bat in this lineup. So no reason not to like him. It sucks Corbin Carroll's out. He would probably mash in this type of matchup. Um, but yeah, Diamondbacks another stack you can, excuse me, certainly consider against John Gray here, who just hasn't been great lately. 5.8 xFIP allowing. It's 250 ISO to left-handed hitters. So load up on Arizona, load up on Zach Gallen, avoid the Texas side of things. That's how we're going to handle that one. Moving into the next game now, we got the Giants at the Astros. Anthony DeSclafani against Hunter Brown. Let's start with the pitchers. Hunter Brown, really talented young arm. He's been solid. He's priced way up now, though, so you're going to see no ownership on him. And then DeSclafani, he's capable of a decent start, but very, very much overpriced, especially on DK where he's 10K. So I'll pull up some stats on these guys as well. Hunter Brown, 378 xFIP to start the season, 27% K rate, generating about 12% swinging strikes. He's really allowed no power at all, and this Giants lineup is decent. But at the same time, I don't mind him here. I mean, at no ownership, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, he makes sense to maybe consider in tournaments. But at the same time, I really wouldn't be playing any Giants bats. Um, and then, yeah, DeSclafani's actually been better than I think people are giving him credit for. Excuse me, I'm talking really fast. We have Houston down the list here. Not really surprised. They do have a pretty high team total, just over 5 runs. But for me, I'm not going to rush to play Houston Astros here. DeSclafani, 3.1 xFIP on the season. He has been hit hard by righties, but he is generating 23% K rate, which isn't bad at all. So if you do want to go with Astros bats, their best bats are lefties, and he's really been lights out against the lefties. So maybe you get some pain. You have Bregman as one-offs, but really no priorities for me here. I'd much rather play some Hunter Brown. Probably wouldn't get to Disclafani at his price, but he hasn't been as bad as I think people think. So I'm not rushing to get to those Astros, but yeah, Hunter Brown, okay GPP play. Unfortunately, he is a bit overpriced. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have good old Coors Field. Freddie Peralta against Ryan Feltner. So Peralta's actually one of the better arms um, on the Brewers, so no surprise that the team total for the Rockies isn't all that high. Um, not going to be playing Freddie Peralta tonight in Coors, but at the same time, he's talented enough to maybe take you off of some Rocky stacks. On the other side, though, Feltner has been mostly terrible. It is Coors Field, so it should come as really no surprise that Milwaukee is our top stack on the slate. They're going to draw a lot of ownership here, not as much as we've seen on recent Coors slates, though, around 50% aggregate over on DK, and then even less than 50% over on FanDuel. So if we're going to get low owned Milwaukee, I actually like them a lot here. So let's take a look at some statistics. Feltner actually has reverse splits to start the season. I wouldn't be afraid of playing lefties against him, but I do prioritize some of these righty bats. Willie Adames, one of the best on the slate for sure. And then Rowdy Tellez. I mean, we're not even sorting by team yet, and you can see these guys popping towards the top of the model. So if we do sort by team, we got Tellez, Adams, Winker, who hasn't been great, but he's very cheap. I mean, you're getting a guy sub 4K in cores in a good matchup. So yeah, really easy to get to some of these Rockies. Tellez, Adames, Contreras, my three favorites. Rookie Joey Weimer does have sneaky power. Brian Anderson in a decent matchup against a righty. I don't mind him here either. So really surprised by the low ownership on Milwaukee. I do expect it comes up through the day, but as things stand right now, they're one of my favorite stacks. I'll go ahead and list them in my little note file there. But yeah, Tellez, Adames, Contreras, those are the three priorities for me. And then you could use Weimer as a way to get things a bit more affordable. So really like Milwaukee. But yeah, over on the Colorado side, I mean, Peralta just hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been great, but at the same time, I mean, this Rockies lineup isn't what it used to be when they had guys like Arenado. So yeah, I'm really not rushing to get to them. I mean, Crone's profiling well, but he can homer against anyone. There's some decent one-offs here, but for me, I'm really not going to get to too many Rockies bats. And yeah, we see them ranking third in OF index though, but at the same time, 24th in ISO, 27th in WOBA, 12th in team total. So I don't mind Colorado, but at the same time, I just wish the lineup was a little bit stronger. Peralta hasn't been that bad, and I think other than Crone, maybe McMahon, it's really tough to count on any of these guys to homer consistently. So yeah, Colorado's fine. If they were higher owned, I'd probably fade them comfortably. But at the same time, you can stack any team in cores. And even when the Rockies are facing a good arm, they do have some upside. So I'm going to take back a little bit what I said. If you want to play Rockies, it's not insane. The model does like them. And a lot of the time, you just got to trust the model. So I'm going to defer to that here. I don't mind Rockies bats. But for me, I'm going to get to a lot more Milwaukee. The ownership gap just isn't wide enough. But yeah, obviously more of a hitting game than a pitching game whenever we're talking about Coors Field. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we got an interesting one between Bryce Miller, Mason Miller. Battle of the Millers here. We got Mariners at Athletics. So we go to the pitchers. OF Index, Mason Miller, the top arm on the board. He's a little bit risky, but when you look at the price, that's the main reason he's scoring so well. And I am not all that surprised, honestly. We'll click over to Oakland. I'll use FanDuel. I think their um, game logs are just a little bit easier to view than what we have on DK. That's the only reason I'm clicking there. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't been outstanding. 4 innings, 4 earned runs. All four of those earned runs against the Angels came in the first inning. He has 5+ Ks in back-to-back starts. Um, so yeah, I like Miller here. I mean, he's been a victim of bad luck. Those 4 runs, I think 3 of them came on a triple, where it probably should have been ruled an error. So if we're really looking at things deeply here, Miller's been a victim of bad luck over his first two starts. Really talented young arm, obviously some risk. But yeah, 3.7 xFIP in spite of the earned runs he's allowed, over a 30% K rate, generating 11% swinging strikes, allowing nothing to lefties, and then righties have had a little bit of success against them. But again, I think that triple that allowed two or three runs in that start against the Angels certainly skewing those numbers. So um, not all that interested in any bats for Seattle. I do like Miller a lot, though, more so as an SB2 on DK or a tournament play over on FanDuel. And then let's take a look at Bryce Miller here. I don't know too much about him. Bryce Miller. But let's see. Yeah, we're seeing. I mean, he's facing the A's first and foremost, so off that alone, there's some merit to playing him. He's not in the player pool on FanDuel though. And yeah, 6.4 ERA in the minors to start the year. So Bryce Miller, yeah, not even popping up in the model. I don't know that he's even available on DK. Not going to want to play him anyway, but at the same time, Oakland Athletics bats, they're not really profiling all that well. But if you're looking for a cheap secondary stack, maybe you could get to some Oakland Athletics against this Bryce Miller kid, who does seem to have some K upside, but he also does allow a lot of power. Um, but yeah, we'll wait for the model to pick up Bryce's numbers throughout the day and see as things adjust for Oakland bats if we want to get to them. There's already a ton of stacks I love though, so the terrible A's lineup isn't something we really have to rush to get to. But yeah, just to reiterate, Mason Miller, one of the better value arms on the board for sure. All right, just a couple more games here. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We got the Reds at the Padres. Graham Ashcraft is facing Michael Wacha. So yeah, sorting by OF index rating, we see the Padres down around 15. We see the Reds even lower, or no, higher. The Reds actually cracked the top 10. So this is pretty interesting to me. Walker usually draws a little bit of ownership. Yep, he's 17% on DK, 11th over on FanDuel. But yeah, not an arm I'm ever rushing to get to. Not a ton of K upside. It is a great matchup against the Reds, but at the same time, I mean, he's just not someone I can ever trust and feel good about rostering. I mean, he's got a 5.2 xFIP to start the season, allowing a 300 plus ISO to lefties, 200 plus to righties. Uh, and yeah, I think he's been a little bit unlucky with a very high BABIP, like 370, but I don't know how much that comes down. At the same time, it is a great matchup against the Reds, but they don't K more than 20% of the time against right-handed pitching. At least their projected starters don't here. So if Walker's going to get ownership, I could see playing some red stacks as a leverage play. Really not something I'm prioritizing though. But yeah, I'm not all that interested in Walker. But then Graham Ashcraft, obviously a very difficult matchup against the Padres. I actually have some interest in him as far as like season long shares go and things like that. But a matchup against the Padres obviously not ideal. He's been decent though. Limiting power, sub 110 ISO to both righties and lefties. So the Padres look okay here. Really not all that great, though. Don't be fooled by the very high team total. I guess that'll probably drive up ownership. I would rather go to some of the other stacks we described so far. So the Padres do have some upside here, but I actually think Ashcraft's a decent arm. Waka, if he's drawing ownership, though, maybe you could play some Reds as a leverage play. But really nothing from that game we have to prioritize. Moving into the last game on the slate now, we have the Phillies at the Dodgers. Matt Strom will be facing Julio Urias. Sorting by OF index, Urias is up there. Strom, they've been stretching him out. He used to be a bullpen arm, but he's been in the starting rotation this year. Very high K rates on him, but also pretty wild. Also doesn't usually pitch too deep into games. But yeah, 349 xFIP, outstanding start to the season, 36% K rate, just a 213 BABIP though, so I do imagine he's going to see a little bit of regression. But at this 6,900 price tag on DK, 8,600 on FanDuel, no one's going to want to play him against the Dodgers. He's borderline GPP viable for me. Probably not something I'd get to if I'm only playing a handful of lineups, but if I am doing large field stuff, um, he's certainly worth considering. He's been really solid, and we have seen him slowly starting to pitch into the fifth and maybe soon the sixth inning. Julio Urias, I think he got rocked last time out. Yeah, coming off a couple bad starts, not a great spot here against the Phillies. It sounds like Bryce Harper is going to be back in the lineup tonight. So Urias drawing decent ownership. He is affordable on both sides, floating around 9K. But yeah, 20% on FanDuel, 30 on DK. I think you could go elsewhere and feel pretty good about it. So Urias viable, not something I'm rushing to get to. Matt Strom though, actually pretty interested in him on DK at 6,900. He's going to be your pivot off of a chalky Mason Miller. Um, but yeah, obviously I prefer Miller of the two, but at the same time, I don't think you have to rush to play Dodgers bats against Strom. He's just been really good. All right, so we're through all the games now. I could just kind of go back through and talk through what we liked best. Top stacks. I mean, we have the Brewers here, Angels and Cardinals from the same game. Both looked really good. I like Baltimore and Minnesota, who we talked about on the front end. And then, yeah, Milwaukee, obviously, in course is appealing here. Pretty surprised by where their ownership's at. Then just going through the pitching now, Gallen looks excellent. Probably my favorite arm on the slate. Joe Ryan looks good. Garrett Cole. All three of them are very expensive, but if you could afford them, those are the three guys that I'm paying up for and paying up for aggressively. Mason Miller as a value play certainly has some appeal. I don't mind Matt Strom as kind of a risky pump, excuse me, punt. And then Tanner Bibby actually against the Yankees is cheap enough for me to consider here as well. So we have some good value arms. We have some really strong, expensive arms, a ton of stacks to like. But keep an eye on the model throughout the day. Things are going to change. We'll also be working on the Daily Plug article, which is going to come out later this evening. That'll help you really nail down our favorite pitchers, stacks, and batters. Once again, my name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. Thanks again for tuning in today. Leave comments in the description below. You like the way I did this game by game? If you prefer, I just focus on top stacks, top pitchers. Let us know what you want to see in these videos. And yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, sign up for Occupy Fantasy, follow me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money.